Bitcoin is attempting a very important relief rally. Will we get stopped out at 110.7, or will the trend continue, and will we reclaim some of those important previous support levels that are now resistance levels? Or is this an uh-oh moment, a bull trap that's going to bring Bitcoin back down to the low 100s? We got Forrest joining me. He's going to give a breakdown of the charts and what he expects to happen. And we're going to talk some altcoins, some important news. There's a lot of back and forth in the Bitcoin developer community on this entire Bitcoin knots. We have that entire breakdown. You're going to get mine and Forrest's take on it. Virtual's protocol is getting rid of Genesis. They've launched the Butler agent. What are they looking to do next? And will it be a revival of the Virtual's protocol token and the ecosystem as well? Vanguard bends the knee. You guys remember when the ETF launched, Vanguard said, no, not up in here, not up in here. Well, they changed their minds and they're going to approve trading of the Bitcoin and crypto ETFs. Also, Swift makes a massive announcement. They've chosen a blockchain and it's not XRP. I'm going to ask Forrest what he thinks and what does this mean for XRP? Are they ultimately pushed aside for an Ethereum L2? We're going to talk about that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go. Hola, hello, welcome. I'm David. Today, we're Sin Rob. What's the opposite of sin? Like sin is minus. And we're Sin Rob plus Forrest. And, well, Forrest is here. Forrest, how you doing, bro?
Good. How about you?
I'm great, man. I missed you. It's been a while. I'm excited to have you on today. There's a lot to talk about. Just real quick before we dig in. Actually, let's start here. It's an interesting post here by Mert. It's a Solana dev, big voice in the Solana ecosystem. He posted this today. Interest rate cuts, stocks up, crypto down. High inflation numbers, stocks up, gold up, crypto down. Geopolitical conflict, stocks up, gold up, crypto down. Who is funding this scam industry? I think the last part was a little hyperbolic. But Forrest, this post by Mert and your overall sentiment with the markets, what are your thoughts? And you know, maybe take some time to share what your thoughts on where the market is currently. Is this par for the course with September historically being the worst month of the year? Is there something else going on here? What are your thoughts, Forrest?
Yeah, it's a very disjointed crypto market right now. It's very exhausting. That being said, this is par for the course for September, but I think it's tough to just bank on it only being just September and Q4 rally like we usually get, because we don't always get the Q4 rally. There's been times where we've had really bad Q4s before. I think 2022 comes to mind. So yeah, it's been an exhausting market. Hopefully we see this bottom form. It looks like it might be a bottom. I think I called bottom yesterday about 4 hours too early on Twitter. I'd like to see at least a bounce here, but I think it's a very tricky, uncertain market. I still lean bull crypto for October at least. And then maybe November and December could be a little choppier, but I do lean towards upside in October, at the very minimum, but it's not fun to watch crypto go down, while everything else is ripping upwards, which is also why it's super important. I've been a huge proponent of gold and silver and platinum and just metals in general, for diversification purposes. I've fortunately been able to offset a lot of crypto losses with metals gains. Treading water a little bit. It's not as fun as just watching your net worth go up, but it's better than watching it go down.
Yeah. Forrest, you mentioned this was your post, by the way. This was yesterday at 7 a.m. So bottom is in. I'm kind of leaning that way as well. Although it's tough. But you mentioned, Forrest, Q4s haven't always been bullish. But I would like to note that the bearish Q4s have been during bear markets, right? You have 2018, you had 2019 as well. And obviously you mentioned 2022. So, with your statement, you said, are you leaning towards the bull market being over? Because if the bull market, in your opinion, is not over, then we should see a bullish Q4. So is that your thesis, Forrest, or what are you saying?
My official base case thesis is we run in October and the bull market's over in like November, December, one of those months.
Okay.
Which is, I know, not a very popular thesis, and I could be wrong. It's very, these things are very difficult to try to time out. Like no one's got a crystal ball. I think Raoul Powell is in the camp that will top sometime in Q2 of next year, which I could also see. I actually think there's quite like stocks and crypto from a tax selling perspective. Like we bottomed last April. So a lot of those buyers that bought the bottom are going to be looking to sell for taxes in April, May. So I do think we could get like a sell in May, go away situation next year, and then that be the top as well. So I'm kind of torn between those two scenarios, either 1 to 2 more months of bull, or maybe 6 more months.
I tend to lean, my brain, I always try to break things down like to its simplest terms of thinking. And I look around and all this bullish news and this law is passing and Chainlink's this partnership and this is going to kick off. And I think a lot of that's going to happen in 2026. The Clarity Act, which a lot of people have said that's going to be the jolt for that big parabolic move, the revival of the bull market. And we expect that to come, if not by the end of the year, then presumably by next year. And I think they're going to try to get it in before the midterm elections. Because if the House or the Senate goes back the other way, then it's going to be a lot harder to pass based on what the Republican side is saying. And then a lot of these partnerships that are being made and the banks that are onboarding and the tokenization, I think we're going to see a lot of that come to fruition in 2026. And so I tend to lean that this bull market is going to bleed into next year, and we're going to get an extended bull market. I'm also in the camp of potential mini cycles, and I think we've kind of seen it already. And is that going to continue? But just looking at what is happening, it's really hard to say the market has topped unless you guys don't think, and Forrest, you as well, unless you don't think that all these narratives and onboarding and integrations and interoperability and all this money's flowing on chain. We're starting to see RWA numbers start to go up. Gaming hasn't ran yet. Maybe it never will. AI continues to grow. ChatGPT's on the brink of AGI. What is that going to do to the AI stocks and AI agents and crypto? So there's a lot of exciting things that are happening. I just find it hard to believe that when those do come to fruition, that it's not going to have a direct effect on the crypto markets and obviously prices of these cryptocurrencies that are in the trenches, like Chainlink, like Avalanche, like XRP, like Ethereum. There's big news with Linea. And so I don't know. I'm in the camp of it's going to bleed into 2026. I am curious to know what the chat thinks. You watching, do you guys think the bull market will be over this year or next year? Put a 1 for 2025, put a 2 for 2026. I'm curious to know what the people watching think. Now, Forrest, before we get into, I want to get into the Vanguard news next. Do you mind pulling up a Bitcoin chart for us? I did the trading show this morning. Bitcoin was this tight range between 108.8 and 109.8, just kind of bouncing up and down. We were getting some buy signals. We were getting some sell signals. Looks like Bitcoin briefly breached that 110 level, but as well below 110 again. What are you seeing on your Bitcoin chart for us? And I know on the lower time frames, those Bollinger Bands were getting quite tight. What are you seeing and what are you expecting for the next move?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, Bitcoin's one of the worst, and this doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to go down because Bitcoin's just been in opposite land for almost years now. But it is one of the worst looking assets out there at the moment. And I don't say that to mean that I'm like immediately bearish. I actually think we're going to bounce here. But we were absolutely, beyond teed up. This black line's all I really want from this. So I'm going to like Yeah, that's our 21-week simple moving average. I'm just going to mark that out and then remove these so it's a little bit clear. We were absolutely teed up on an inverse head and shoulders here with a breakout with amazing, and I was super, super bullish here. And we even had a bull flag, right? And then we even had, the bull flag failed, and then we had a retest of the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders. I'll zoom in a little bit more here so it feels good. And then
there too for
we
us.
had a break of this all-time high that just totally failed. And ever since that all-time high SFP, this has just absolutely failed. It's fallen through the neckline. It's tried to reclaim the neckline once and it's failed again. So this is just a total, utter failure for Bitcoin in terms of upside price action. If like gold did something very similar to this, and instead of just failing and chopping down and making a lower high and a lower low, gold just went vertical and has been going vertical for the last year, right? So that's like the main difference and why there's kind of alarm bells ringing for myself and a lot of people for Bitcoin here. If Bitcoin was teed up and so bullish, why did it just totally fail? And you can maybe argue that maybe this is going to be an ABC correction, and then maybe this is just something weird happening, some whales exiting, whatever, and this turns into a big deviation, and we get back on track. And I'm very open, like if Bitcoin starts pumping again and gets back on track, I'm very open to being bullish on Bitcoin. But there's just some alarm bells ringing where we've now seen a failure on this a failed inverse head and shoulders breakout, failure to reclaim, lower high, lower low. You really have to be thinking along the lines of trend reversal here for Bitcoin. That being said, right now it's still rather, I don't want to say innocent because alts have gotten crushed pretty hard, but Bitcoin's still 110K. Bitcoin's still 110K. It's been underperforming the rest of the markets, been underperforming stocks. It's been underperforming gold and silver. It's been underperforming everything, but it has just reverted to its 21-week simple moving average. It's fallen below its 21-week simple moving average. I think at the bare minimum here, we're going to get a retest at about 111. That's our 21-week simple moving average, 110.6 to be exact. So the very, very minimum I would expect in the short term that we do retest this. But we want to see in the immediate term for upside here, we want to see a strong reclaim. We want to see this thing jam up to 113K in the next couple days, really this weekend, early next week. And we want to see a hold above the 21-week simple moving average. And that gives us some permission to not be so bearish, to maybe think that there's some upside here. We want to see a reclaim of that neckline. We want to see the inverse head and shoulders print there. Basically, we're in a very polarized spot for Bitcoin where it's going to make a decision. And I think whatever decision it makes, that's what you really want to lean into. If Bitcoin breaks down further here and we take out 107, I think you really want to be looking to be bearish biased and sell retests. If we can reclaim here and we can start moving up to 113, 114, I think you want to be very bullish biased. I think you want to be looking for upside. So right now it's kind of just sitting and waiting. I'm long because I do think October will be a good month, but it's not been easy to be long through this this latest correction. So I'm cautiously optimistic with keeping Bitcoin on a short leash here if it does decide to start spewing down lower. I don't want to be caught holding the bag.
Forrest, what is that neckline? What was the price of that neckline right there?
It's at about 116. About 116. You want to see this, it had this prior high at about 118. So you really want to see this thing run above 117, 118, make a higher high, and then a quick higher low, print this little inverse head and shoulders, and continue upwards. Okay. If we do this into October 8th, 9th, 10th, I get pretty bullish for Q4. I think that there's a solid setup for alts to run, a solid setup for Bitcoin to keep running here. We would have had a mean reversion down to the 21-week simple moving average. And I'd say Bitcoin looks healthy for upside if it can do that. But I think it's just very vulnerable right now in the short term. I think we do just need to be, I don't want to come across as being too bearish, but I also just don't want to, be, totally negligent here, because if Bitcoin does fail to get back up above the 21-week simple moving average, like, it has in the past, it can lead to 20-30% more downside. And we want to protect our capital and make sure that we are being smart. A reclaim of the 21-week simple moving average, though, is equally bullish. So we're just a very polarized spot right now for Bitcoin, in my opinion.
So, Forrest, are you expecting a decision by this weekend, you said, whether it's going to reclaim and get above that 111 or just more downside?
Yeah, actually, I do. I do think this should resolve fairly quickly. I would say Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is really where you want to see this thing reclaim here in the short term. Like the longer you hang out down here, and I'll give you an example. Right when we kind of spewed off after we had the inauguration and then the tariffs. Once we lost this 21-week simple moving average, we back tested it and we failed, and that led to not only more immediate downside to the tune of another 12% drop, which, guys, a 12% drop in Bitcoin, that could be 20-30% more in alts. And then, it was, in terms of timeline, it was another month and a half before we kind of bottomed out and could recover from that drop. So that was kind of your bear signal to say, hey, we just retested the 21-week simple moving average and then failed to hold it on the 2 subsequent retests, which were very sloppy, difficult to trade because there was a lot of crazy news coming out at that point in time. But a small drop below the 21-week simple moving average followed by a quick reclaim, that's bullish. That's fine. That's a mean reversion. We're fine. But a failure and from here, I really wouldn't want to see a new low being made. I'd like to see the low be in. There's a scenario where maybe we get a quick wick down to 107. And then again, you would want to see that reclaim rather quickly. Below 107, I just start losing interest in a multi-month investment in crypto. And you just kind of want to buckle down and survive until it starts looking more bullish.
Fair enough. So, the title of the show today, Forrest, is Crypto is Fucked. And so I guess it's a wait and see. To Forrest's point, the longer you're kind of chopping at that level, I think the more bearish it is. A quick reclaim of that 21-week moving average, I think that'll, flip the bulls. So yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of, there's some good and bad going on. So let's talk about the good. Okay. This is posted by Eleanor Tourette. Vanguard eyes crypto ETF access for brokerage clients. The world's second largest asset manager, Vanguard, is preparing to allow access to crypto ETFs on its brokerage platform, according to a source familiar with the matter. Now, remember, when the ETF went live, everyone was excited, minus Vanguard. And well, why is Vanguard so important? Well, let's take a peek at why Vanguard is so important. Look at these numbers. These are per billion, meaning that you're looking at trillion, okay? Since 2021, 7.3 trillion, the following year, 8.1 trillion, then 8.6. And then in April of this year, it crossed $10.1 trillion. These are assets under management by Vanguard, second to only BlackRock. Very, very bullish news. A lot of people look at the ETFs are being bad. I think Eric Balkunas, the senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, said, hey, guys, zoom out. This is the Bitcoin chart since the ETF went live. Okay? Since the ETF went live, this is what Bitcoin has done in terms of price action and performance. So, Forrest, I think it's safe to say that do you disagree that Vanguard allowing this is bullish? Some people see this as, this could be the saving grace. You're opening up an avenue of potentially multiple trillions of dollars now having access to Bitcoin. You think this is enough of a news if the inflows start coming in to kind of reverse course on where Bitcoin has gone on the kind of the macro trend over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I actually do. I think I think it's a very good thing. I also think like the whole 401k thing. I forget the actual the news, but I think the SEC was writing or some senators wrote the SEC to, act on the executive order to allow 401ks to invest in Bitcoin. That opens the door for a lot of demand. It's just like kind of how the ETF was bullish for Bitcoin, giving Bitcoin or giving more access to people to invest in Bitcoin. It's just going to push more liquidity and more buyers and more demand for Bitcoin. So yeah, I think it's bullish. I think it is a bigger deal than most people are probably thinking it is. Vanguard's massive, so yeah. The only thing is, I think Vanguard does allow access to MicroStrategy, which will be very interesting because I'd imagine a lot of Vanguard clients are getting Bitcoin access and exposure through MicroStrategy. So I wonder if they would sell their MicroStrategy and then buy Bitcoin, or maybe just use the ETFs.
That's interesting.
Or am I off? Am I wrong there? I think they have access to MicroStrategy.
They do. Yeah, they do. And so very interesting point. I saw someone post on X that they had, they compared, hey, they said I put 20 grand in MicroStrategy at this point. I'm down X amount. If I would have put it in Bitcoin at the same point, I would have made money. Michael Saylor and investors have said investing in MicroStrategy is like a 3x leverage to just holding Bitcoin. And well, that hasn't proven to be true. And so interesting. If you can't raise more capital, I don't know. It's interesting. And what you brought up is also very interesting. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty and FUD around Bitcoin and its future. And it's starting to heat up, and I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to get Forrest's take, and you'll get my take as well. A lot of people are saying this is a make or break moment for Bitcoin, whether this Bitcoin knots passes or not, pun intended. Okay, so Luke Daschner, who's a prominent voice and figure in the land of Bitcoin and Bitcoin development and developers. So he has apparently been pushing to hard fork Bitcoin. And there's been a lot of back and forth from the core devs, from the kind of forward-looking devs. The OGs like Adam Back are super against it. The newer ones are saying, yeah. Michael Saylor posted a video that at the very end said something about Bitcoin knots and just showing it in a positive light and saying, hey, I'm kind of with this. So here's the breakdown. Okay, now I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a developer. I know the ins and outs. I don't. But I understand from a fundamental level what this could mean. So, all about Bitcoin's latest hard fork drama. What is a Bitcoin hard fork proposal by Luke? It involves giving a trusted committee power to censor and replace blockchain data deemed illegal. And as I'm going through this information, I would love for the chat. I would love for you guys to be part of this conversation, share your thoughts. I'll go through and I'll pick some of them and I'll share those as we're going along our conversation. Why is it controversial? It threatens Bitcoin's core value of censorship resistance and blockchain immutability. Some stats and facts, okay? So what is this knots thing? It involves a hard fork. Now, some have said, no, it's not a hard fork. It's just an implementation or a change in the code. It's an improvement proposal. But it involves changing how Bitcoin validators validate blocks, okay? It involves a hard fork that would give a trusted multi-sig committee the power to retroactively alter blockchain data. The stated aim is to remove child sexual abuse material. You'll see this CSAM and other non-monetary data such as ordinals and runes content that some in the community have long labeled as spam. Core explored adjusting the OP return size to limit harmful data storage, while Knots is looking to take a stricter position, just completely filtering these transactions from the memory pool. In practice, this would mean transactions flagged for content like CSAM or spam could be stripped out and replaced with zero-knowledge proofs, keeping the transaction valid while altering the chain's stored data. This is a screenshot of Luke's messages back and forth. Right now, and this is what he said, the only option would be either Bitcoin dies or we have to trust someone. And so, Forrest, in a nutshell, what this would do is a block or transactions are broadcasted to the network. There's a 1 hour delay. The transactions go through another layer where the multi-sig committee can sift through and say, this is spam, this is spam, this is CSAM, this is Bitcoin owner, this doesn't belong on the blockchain. And then they remove those, and then they move that to the block being finalized. Now, the idea here is, well, it kind of goes against Bitcoin's whole, we don't care who you are, where you are, why you're sending money, why. It's decentralized, it's open source, it's for all. We don't care what the transaction is. We are not the arbiters of whether a transaction should go through or not. The pro side of this not says Bitcoin cannot handle the runes and this and that. It's bogging the network down. It's causing transaction fees to go high, yada, yada. We need to filter those out. Bitcoin was not meant for that. The other people on the other side, the core people, are saying if you give the opportunity to mute certain transactions or completely remove data from the blockchain and from each block, Bitcoin is no longer Bitcoin. So, Forrest, with the information you have that I just presented, what's your kind of surface level thoughts? Do you agree with the Bitcoin knots advocates that are saying we need to remove the spam? It's multi-sig, it's a committee, but ultimately you're putting it in the hands of a select few people? Or do you agree with people like Adam Back, who are the core devs, who are saying, absolutely not, you're now running into censorship, this is not what Bitcoin was meant for? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be very, very against this proposal. And I don't like, I just think they can hard fork Bitcoin. I just think that it would be like Bitcoin Cash or whatever. Like this new fork would just go to zero relatively quickly. So I agree with the core people. Like you can't give a small council of people the ability to censor information and then or censor censor transactions. That just is just the entire point of Bitcoin would just be, reversed by this. So yeah, I think this is like super straightforward. I don't see any reason for this to be implemented whatsoever. There's really just not even a good argument to be made. Like filtering out the CSAM, like, look, Bitcoin's not necessarily anonymous. I don't agree with people, posting that, but people post it on the internet and they should be arrested, sent to prison, and serve time for that. But it's like that you can't just disable the entire internet for everybody because there's a few bad people that are posting that stuff. So if somebody puts it on Bitcoin, arrest them, send them to prison. But you can't do that.
I agree. It's a slippery slope. It's just anytime you try to democratize something or decentralize it, there's going to be bad people who take advantage and who do bad shit. It comes with the territory. It's with everything. 98% of gun owners are responsible people. You have the few that are not. And so it just is what it is. You want to live in a free, decentralized world. People always rag on Solana. Oh, it's the scam chain. It's out there and people use it. And so when you start digging into, well, we got to censor this and censor that, I think you're going down a slippery slope. I agree with you, Forrest. I don't like it. Bitcoin was created. Let it run, man. Because if this knots thing passes, some are saying it's not a hard fork. It is a hard fork. It's just an integration. It's an improvement proposal, yada, yada. Either way, if you go down that slope of, well, we're just going to remove the illegal stuff. Okay, well then, is this illegal? Is that illegal? What about this? It would ultimately get rid of ordinals. It would get rid of runes. It would get rid of a lot of stuff. Sure, in theory, Bitcoin would be faster. It would be cheaper to send money, which is what Satoshi wanted. But let's face it, what Satoshi wanted, where we're at now, even without the knots integration, it's not what he envisioned. It's not really meant to be peer-to-peer. It's becoming a reserve asset, a hedge against inflation. Look at what Blair Fink is saying. So we've been far removed away from that, but that's from natural market adoption. The market has decided Bitcoin is not peer-to-peer. Bitcoin is now this. I think that's also a lot of the reason why you're seeing a lot of OG Bitcoin miners, developers, people that have these ancient whale wallets that have been holding on to tens of thousands of Bitcoin. You're seeing those move. It's because when they got in, That was the thesis. That was where Bitcoin was at. And now that has changed. Money is moving from this subset of people who believed in X to the subset of people who believe in Y. And that is the institutions, that is the ETFs, that is a new age. Bitcoin is a store of value. It's a monetary asset. It's the hardest commodity. And so I agree, Forrest. I'm against it. So yeah. And I think a lot of people are against it as well. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know if it's a hard fork. I don't know if it's an improvement proposal, but it's it's something that's got the Bitcoin developer community up in arms. And as more information comes through, we'll make sure to share that with you. All right, let's take a look at the markets and recovering. We'll get Forrest to throw some charts. Is there anything the chat wants Forrest to chart? Let us know. Let's take a peek at coin market cap. Obviously, we talked about Bitcoin. 109.9, attempting to reclaim that 110 level again. 110.7 was a level that I had marked out for BTC. So you can see the green line here. We saw what Bitcoin did when it reached that 118 level. It fell, bear flag fell, and looks like now bear flag. I think for me, reclaiming 112 is going to be very, very important, and that would kind of satisfy Forrest's kind of levels of it being the simple moving average. I think he said around 110.7 or 111. I think we need to move up, break above, and a retest, solidify that 112 as support, and I think we can expect a pretty decent sized bounce. ETH finally above 4K again. I look at ETH, Forrest, and I'm like, is this the best value bounce that we can see on ETH? XRP at $2.80. Solana back above $200, BNB at $9.64, and then Hyperliquid at 7.5% in the green. There's been a lot of talk about Aster replacing Hyperliquid. Forrest, when you look at the top 10, is there one that you can point to that you feel fairly confident that could see the biggest bounce, the quickest? And if you want to share that with the people watching.
Yeah, I think all these are bouncing pretty nicely. I could see Hyperliquid going much higher. I could see, but personally, I'm long ETH and XRP right now. I also think BNB is pretty interesting here, but yeah, I'll share maybe an XRP chart and then maybe an ETH chart.
Cool. Perfect.
I think so. That's Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid. While we're on it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in this rising channel, bottoming out here. Personally, for an entry on Hyperliquid, I would be looking for, if we zoom in, we're on the 4-hour here. I'd be looking for this to go a little bit higher and then come back down and test maybe 43. Maybe tomorrow, this weekend into, yeah, that would be like Sunday. And then maybe next week we have, some upside to be had here, but I'd be looking for this to come back down. If it just keeps ripping and I miss it, that's fine. Not too big of a deal there. XRP, I've got, quite a lot drawn here, but essentially with XRP, you have like this big wedge into it's like a very large support level. This is a very strong support level. This is also, I know a lot of people are in the camp of like the more times you touch a support and hold, the weaker it gets, which I do think is true. However, there's oftentimes support that is tested 3 times, and then after the 3rd time that it holds, you get a big bounce, and that ends up being your triple bottom. So just because this has hit 3 times doesn't necessarily mean that I think this is super weak. What I wouldn't want to see is I wouldn't want to see this hit 4 times. Because you don't really hear much about quadruple bottoms or quintuple bottoms. You do hear a lot about triple bottoms, and that's what we're trying to form here right now. So I do think that XRP is into very strong support. Now, something to keep in mind is if very strong support, which is this range between 265 and 278, we call it 265 and 280. If this does break, when strong support breaks or strong resistance breaks, usually you get a very strong reaction, very big markdown or very big markup, right? So the markdown on XRP would probably just be instantaneously, very short-term move to 240, which I do think would be a good buy. It would be on your trend line. It would be near your base of the entire move. There's tons of volume in here. If I was going to throw on a volume profile, you'd see a big volume profile around 240. So it's entirely possible that we do come down to 240. But as long as we hold this support and we get a good October, I think we could see XRP up towards $4, maybe higher, maybe higher. But in the grander scheme of things on the 12-hour, we see this kind of rising wedge maybe developing. So we'd want to reassess and see, are we going to break out from $4 and go vertical, which would be, then we're talking about $7, $10, $20. So we're talking about a huge run. Or are we going to get resistance at $4 or $3.80, whatever this is, again, and then maybe come back down and test this support that we're at right now towards the bottom of the wedge, and then make a decision if we're going to break out of a rising wedge to the downside or maybe to the upside. So there's this is a pretty large pattern that I think could take a long time to develop. And, maybe we get 380 in November, and then, that's kind of my base case is like with some downside in December. But then maybe we come back, late December, early January, and then we get we get to kick into high gear again. So I do think XRP is pretty likely to bounce and give some upside here. I think it's a pretty good hold here. And then ETH was very, very logical. So ETH's the last chart I'll go over here. ETH was I bought some ETH, so I was long crypto for this drop. I had to stop out of some trades. But then rebought ETH yesterday around the time where I tweeted out bottom. We went a little bit lower after that, but ultimately my entry's been pretty good. I think around 3,900. It's a pretty logical back test, a pretty reasonable thing to be doing here. This is one of those things, though, that it's very important that this back test does hold. If we don't hold this back test, if we do go lower, down towards 33, we start breaking down here. Yes, we can still bounce and build structure and come back up, but it opens up the possibility of this just being a big deviation, and then potentially seeing pretty extreme downside back down to like 2K, where all this volume occurred, which is not what I want to see. But as of right now, there's nothing that's like very, very alarming about this. Contrary to Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin's trading a little more ugly than ETH here. I think ETH, since the lows at 1,400, we've gotten a higher high, higher low, higher low. And if this low holds, this is a back test and a low and a higher low. I see no reason why. If you weren't paying attention to anything else but ETH here, and you were just kind of like zoomed in on the daily since the lows here, you'd say this looks super strong. You'd say this is there's nothing wrong necessarily with ETH here. In fact, we just tested our prior highs, and right now we're getting a pretty solid reaction off of it. Was it a pretty sudden drop, pretty oversold drop? Yes, right. 20%. But this is crypto. It's a volatile asset. This is a bullish trend. I mean, this isn't anything that we haven't seen. Like we saw a 25%er and then proceeded to rip 130%, almost nonstop. So this wouldn't be that out of the question for this to be one of these flushes, right? And then, you reclaim the range. A reclaim of 4,300 on XRP probably means we're going to 52, 5,300. So I do think ETH is still relatively good risk reward here. I think you could probably cut if we made a new low, and I think you could just long this up to like 52 to, maybe 6,000. We'll see. But I do think there's upside here. And then just like in the grander scheme of things, I could see this just kind of coming up and tagging 5,300, and then that maybe it cools off and we get a longer, more drawn out, like long funnel or channel or something. But in the short term, I have to lean bullish here on most things until proven otherwise.
Beautiful. Forrest, Dad Bod Hustle from the chat said, would you buy more Tau or SWE right now? To me, it's an unequivocal Tau. There's a lot of bullish sentiment happening. A massive fund was just launched. Forget still point. Pretty big names behind it. Also, you have the halving coming up in 2 months. Emissions get cut in half. AI isn't going anywhere. BitTensor is the largest AI ecosystem, decentralized AI ecosystem in the entire world. And so for me, nothing wrong with SWE. I have SWE also, but to me, it's Tau. I mean, Tau is sitting at, and Forrest, feel free to answer that question as well. Tau is sitting at $300 with a market cap of $3 billion. And so almost identical tokenomics to Bitcoin. And again, having in around December 10th-ish. So to me, the answer is BitTensor. Nothing wrong with SWI. I have both. But Forrest, you know, to Dadbot Hustle's question, are you favoring one over the other?
I think both actually have very solid big patterns on them. I've got my chart pulled up here. I mean, this is just a very large wedge. So it's similar to XRP in the sense like you could buy the bounce here towards the bottom of the wedge and, you know, sit and pray that the wedge holds, you know, like I am with XRP. And then you get all the upside that the wedge brings, being in from the lows. Alternatively, you could look for something like this to play out, where if we zoomed in a little bit there, you'd see like, you know, maybe a little inverse head and shoulders action, and then buying the actual breakout of the wedge. SWI is not that bad looking either.
Ooh.
I say that, and then it just kind of broke down here. I haven't charted this in a while.
Ugly.
I was actually charting this triangle, looking for upside here, but this could be also pretty ugly break to the downside.
Is that the daily for us? Is that the daily?
Yeah, this is the daily. That being said, it is still like, you know, it is still similar to Tau in the grander scheme of things in this kind of like bull flag wedge. I wouldn't want to see this break much further down, maybe below $3. You can start to look for shorts or just to cut positions in SWI. But if this holds, you know, and we start, you know, climbing our way back up to $3-4, you know, or high threes, then this could break out, and this just ends up being a little deviation that was, you know, harmless in the grand scheme of things. So SWI looks a little bit less attractive to me than Tau, to be honest. But I think we are just like, a lot of what these charts are saying to me is that we're still just in this little chop zone, and hopefully nearing the end of it. Hopefully we don't do another one of these. That would kind of suck. You know, then we're looking at, you know, December before anything takes off. But I do think like October could bring price action that looks like this. I mean, these things can run super hard, right? That this would be into like early November. Like we could be looking at the bottom right now and just be up only and into October. And there's nothing unrealistic or impossible, you know, when it comes to looking at a scenario like this playing out. We could see $600 Tau by end of October. I'm not saying that's my base case, but that is a bull pull. That is a bull flag / descending wedge. And we are towards the bottom of the wedge here. If we get going in October, there's no reason that we couldn't see something like this play out. It's not unrealistic at all.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm about to put in a Tau long. You know, and then Forrest, on your on SWI, couple things. This is the chart I have. I have it on the daily, right? There's the same exact pattern. It was a breakdown and a failed retest, so that's not good. But I think SWI's at a tipping point, because the ribbon I have is a 200-day moving average ribbon on the daily time frame. If that doesn't hold, then I think SWI is kind of fucked. To put it in layman's terms. But yeah, I mean, I agree, Forrest. I think Tau, the 600, that was my base case, like 574 to like 580. And again, with the bullish news surrounding it, SWI's got to get back in that channel, my friend. Initial failure to get back into this pattern. And then this was a 7 or 8% move in a day. Luckily, it caught the support at the 200-day moving average. If that fails, I think you're coming all the way back down to like $2.40-ish. And so to your point, yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm uber bullish on BitTensor, man. I really am. I've been uber bullish on BitTensor. It's my second largest portfolio holding in totality. And so, yeah, I'm hyper bullish. And once I get off this, I'm going to put in a long on Tau. Low leverage, but definitely more capital. Okay, Forrest, I'm interested to get your take on this. Global banking giant Swift ignites mainstream adoption with Ethereum stablecoin payment test. According to the report, the project involves more than a dozen global banks, including BNB Paribas and BNY Mellon, the oldest bank in the United States, maybe in the world, well, not in the world, but in the United States, and is exploring the use of a stablecoin-like token for settlement. I think, yeah, there we go. Notably, so Linea is a ZK rollup on ETH. It was selected for its ZK technology, which provides low-cost, high-throughput transactions while retaining Ethereum security. Its design also emphasizes data privacy through advanced cryptographic proofs, a feature seen as essential for banks who are trying to navigate strict compliance requirements. The experiment could take several months to materialize, but industry participants say it represents a major technological step forward for the interbank sector. Now, Forrest, I am not being a troll when I ask this question, but does this mean that XRP and all the talk about, oh, XRP is gonna, do the settlement layer payments, and you take a look on the daily, Linea's up 17%. It's gonna crack into the top 100. It's at 129. What does that mean for XRP? And what are your general thoughts about this announcement from Swift?
Yeah, I think Swift has been kind of, or at least a guy at Swift has been kind of
a guy at Swift
chirping at XRP for a while. So I don't think they were ever going to have a partnership. Oh, what's up?
You said a guy at Swift.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, so I forget, I don't know what his position is, but he's been tweeting stuff about,
his name Tom something, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was kind of off the table for a while now. So I think XRP is potentially looking to be more like a competitor to Swift. But also I just think XRP, or Ripple rather, is just looking to be a crypto bank. I think they're ultimately trying to be a bank. They're going after a banking license. I don't know if it's been approved yet or if it's in the works, but I think Ripple as a company is trying to be a bank built on crypto rails, which is still, I'm still bullish on Ripple, still bullish on XRP in the long term. Shorter term price action has made things a little bit difficult, but fundamentally I still think they're fine. And also think whenever they IPO and we get to see their balance sheet, I think people are going to be surprised to the upside. I'd buy the Ripple IPO if it came out tomorrow at almost any price.
I think a lot of people would, Forrest. I think a lot of people would. And okay. So I was trying to put this in, but my position size was too big. Okay. So then does this make you bullish on Linea? It's still sitting at sub 500 million market cap, Forrest. Is this a project that, obviously, if I were to be saying, if I made the determination, yes, it's worth a buy. Yes, it's worth a hold. I'm not buying right now. I'm going to wait for a pullback. Once that pullback comes, is this something that you're like, okay, this is pretty bullish. I want exposure to this project. Is that something that's part of your game plan for us with the news?
I longed Linea, not like a crazy size or anything, because I don't know much about it, but I think that in and of that part, it's just like an easy, or if it pumps and dumps, right? If it just falls back down to where it was before the announcement, just cut it. But it's a pretty, Swift is a pretty big name, carries a lot of weight.
Definitely,
like you said, it's $500 million market cap versus, some of these other chain. Like if XRP had this announcement, XRP would probably be at $5 today. Which is funny that, it would have been a bigger deal for XRP than it has been for Linea so far. So yeah, I'm long Linea. Maybe there's some upside there. I don't know much about it, but it's more of just kind of I wasn't early to the news, I still think
it's built by Consensus, which is also Joe Lubin, co-founder of ETH, also founders of MetaMask. So it's got a big name behind it, and looking at the 4 hour on Linea, massive head and shoulders. I mean, you want to talk about a picture perfect head and shoulders? This is it. We had the breakdown, and this could turn into a flag, although I don't think it will. But yeah, I personally would be waiting for a pullback. I'd be waiting for a pullback, maybe down to maybe to 2.8 or maybe down to the 236 level. But I don't know. Maybe this thing just continues to run. Again, anything involving Swift, look at Chainlink. It takes time. It's the largest money movement network, messaging movement network in the world. So the integrations take time. It's not like, oh, the announcement and oh my God, this is going to happen. It's going to take time to implement. It's going to take time to put into effect. And so you're going to see a pullback. The pullbacks is where you want to buy if you have deemed this being a needed asset in your portfolio. Okay, let's talk about virtuals. Forrest, I'm also curious to get your updated thesis on virtuals. They are a project, a founding team that continues to pivot and make the right moves. And here's their latest pivot. We're killing Genesis to build a new world. What began as an experiment in fair launch and open participation was powerful early on, but it can't scale to what's next. After listening to builders, virgins, and the data, the path forward is clear. Genesis ends here. A new launch model is coming, built for scale, built for the next wave of agents, built to last. They launched Butler, which Butler's been sliding in my DMs. So I'll show you what these DMs look like. It just gives you, and let's go here so we get a little bigger. It kind of drops in, like it shows you what you hold, right? And then it tells you, oh, hey, by the way, a token in your wallet, Wire, smart money net outflow, X amount of Wire was sold. People are buying it. It kind of gives you some like metrics and stats. And so what's your updated thesis on virtuals for us? If we look at where virtuals is right now, it's outside the top 100. It's at $1.04, sub 1 billion market cap. What's your updated thesis and what's your thoughts on the move away from Genesis and the move into what they're coming up next?
Yeah, let me share my screen here. I've got a chart pulled up. Yeah, so this had a 26,000% move. So it doesn't matter. Like, they could be doing the most bullish things imaginable, which the team is very, very good. I think they're the best team in crypto. They're going to just continue to pivot until they find something that works. They've done it before and they'll do it again. This thing moved up 26,000%. That means it needs to correct both in terms of price, which it did, but also needs to correct in terms of time, which I think it's like honestly, this might be the most bullish chart that we've looked at today. If right, this could continue trending down, this could even break down, but if this can break up to above 150, this becomes super bullish again. Very, very bullish, because then you have a very large triangle pattern, which is a continuation pattern, and off of an absolutely massive, massive bull pull. So initial targets off of this pull would be something like maybe $4 or $5 again, retesting prior all-time high. Off of this one, it's going to come across as very unrealistic, because this one was so large, but you're talking about $60, $70. That's not what I'm saying is going to happen. I don't think we're going to see virtual 60x from here. I mean, I guess it could, but that's just the type of pattern, the size of the pattern that we have going on right now. So I would be very of anything, like, even if you're like kind of bearish on crypto here, this would be like one of the last things that I would want to be selling. I wouldn't want to sell this right now. This looks like it has just a ton of potential to run back towards all-time highs at a minimum. And then just the team's the best team in crypto. They are going to they are not afraid to just scrap something that they've spent a lot of time working on. If it's not making the token price go up, and if it's not hitting with the community. So they're just going to continue to build until they crack the code again, and they've build something that people really want and has good product market fit, and there's a lot of demand for. And they're just also very smart about their token and tokenomics. So yeah, huge fan of the virtuals team. Can't speak highly enough about them. But yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting charts that we have taken a peek at today. A lot of potential.
Do you want to throw out a thesis out there? I mean, not a thesis, but like a price prediction for us. If you were to guess, by the time the market's topped, where does virtuals go? Does it break its previous all-time high of $5?
I think this chart's very contingent on this thing breaking out from this little downtrend that we've been in since May.
Yeah.
if this breaks out in October, or in the next, couple of it's very similar to Tau, very similar to XRP, where these things are at the bottom of their channels right now. And if they pop into October and we get a good October, I mean, I'd be looking at prior all-time highs, or pretty close, right? $4 to $6, $4 to $5 up here, at a minimum. And then maybe we get that, I'm a little iffy about November. There's just a lot of tax selling that occurs in November that I'm iffy about. But then, maybe we get a 2026 Q1 bull. And then maybe we do see some crazy blow-offs. It wouldn't be too surprising if that's what we ended up seeing happen. See a big move in October, a big correction that leads to the entire market, or the entire everybody thinking that the bull market's over, and then we come back with a vengeance in Q1. Yeah, bare minimum, assuming this breaks out in October, then I would think retest to the prior all-time highs are in store.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I had taken some profit on virtuals a while ago, but I don't plan on selling anytime soon. I was actually, I was looking at Towns, Forrest, and yours is like right up there. I was trying to get back to the homepage. You were listed on the homepage, Sistine Towns. And so how's that been going? And are you guys making money in there?
Making money on metals, not on crypto recently. Crypto's beat me up pretty bad. I've been, like I said, bullish going into October. And it's gotten for the last 2 years in a row. I've been bullish going into October, November, December. Remember being bullish on Solana 2 years, like 2023, in October, and that was the year we had like a lot of political violence, like the whole Israel October 7th or 6th thing, whatever the date was. I distinctly remember the whole market feeling like it was over, like we were just going to go down again. And then we got through October or into October, and Solana ripped from like $25 and didn't stop until it got to 210. Then last year, very similar story. Although I think we kind of had a bad October last year because of the kind of anticipation of the election and uncertainty around the election. But then once the election came around, November, we started ripping. So yet again, I've been bullish into September, or into October, but kind of trying to position for that has been brutal in this like last minute September dip. And it's been tough on the crypto side. On the metal side, gold and silver is just making money hand over fist. Unfortunately, crypto right now losing money hand over fist. Hopefully, those two things they're canceling out right now. But hopefully, crypto bottoms out and we can start making money in both metals. Or maybe metals will just take a pause and crypto will run. I'd be happy for that to be the case.
Yeah. I think the important thing for us, and I love that you do it, is being ready to pivot, whether if it goes against your thesis, your long-term thesis or not, just being nimble enough to be like, all right, here's where the money's flowing. Let's preserve capital here. And I think you've done a good job. I put the link to join Forest Towns, and I put it in the chat, and I've pinned it to the top. Highly, highly recommended. I have a channel in there that I post some stuff in there as well. And so if you're looking for some great alpha, more of Forrest takes, and I know he's got some other people in there that post their takes, and well, you can get tipped. I've gotten tipped, I think like $60 in there. Pretty cool. So you share alpha in there, and you help people make money. You can get tipped right through the Towns app, and you can make money that way. And so yeah, Forrest, we love having you on as always, my friend. Have an amazing weekend. Before I let you go, I need a Monday price prediction for Bitcoin. Monday, Sin City Crypto Show starts at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Where is Bitcoin going to be?
Let's call it 115. Let's call it 115.
Oh,
I'm gonna say bottoms in. It's gonna retrace all this downside. Bears are in trouble. A little bit of that's biased and a little bit of hope, but yeah, I think there's a decent chance here. I think there's also a chance we get like one more kind of sketchy low down to like 107 and then rip. But yeah, I think it's as reasonable place as ever to take some bets and be long. 115.
Awesome.
112.
Oh, hey.
112.
I'll take 112,
100.
dude.
Oh, it's a ghost of Rob Passed.
112.
112.
112. Write it down.
Happy you made it just in time for the price prediction.
That's all that matters. That's all I care about is Bitcoin price.
I think I kind of agree with you, Forrest. I think I do think we get that wick down, and I don't think we come in at 115 on Monday. I think we come in, we've recovered. I think we're at like 111.2. That's where I'm kind of at, 111.2. Anyways, thank you all very much. Gina, roll the outro. We love you guys. We appreciate all of you. Thank you to Forrest. Have an amazing weekend. And we will see you back here on Monday. Until then.
Cash is cool, yeah. Sin City, crypto. Everybody know what we here for. Entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in. For big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Named according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya. City.